Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Agent Paco, and you're watching Sorcerers Gone Wild. It's a big day because it's the start of my sorcery foil collecting journey. As you can see, I've got a really cool binder that the sorcery team made. It's the Atlas binder right here. I know the binder situation was a situation in the sorcerer community where the pages didn't turn out quite right, so they wound up refunding anybody who ordered these for free. So, I was able to pick this up in the original order, and this was actually the only binder out of the 9 that I ordered that can fit cards in the bottom row, like with any sort of sleeve on them at all. So, we're rocking the Atlas one today. But the reason I have this is because right now, as you can see, it's full of a full non-foil set of the beta set. So the entire sorcery beta set, just one of each card, I have in the binder here. And, I thought, what could I do? What can I make a video on? Sorcery is a game that the releases are sparse, so what can you really make content about? But as I start my content creation journey, I thought, you know what? I'm a big collector. I have a good amount of sorcery foils, and I really want to pack this binder with my foils. I would love to have a full foil set in the official binder. I think that is just really appealing to me, and so I had this idea. So right now, I've got a non-foil set in the Atlas binder, and then this Dragon Shield binder I just picked up from my local game store, and I have a lot of foils. It's an incomplete foil set. I think I'm missing like 150 cards, as you can see as I scroll through here. These are all foils, and all the slots that are missing are from cards that I don't have yet. So still a long ways to go, but I basically want to transfer all of my foils into the official binder. And, I know this is kind of mindless entertainment, but I was like, why not just film it while I do it? Maybe talk about sorcery, what I like about the game, some improvements I think I could see happening in the future before the next set. And yeah, so throw this on the old second monitor, and just enjoy a little rearranging of my sorcery collection. As you can see, I do have all the avatars. I don't have most of the 9, power 9, whatever. I've got 2, so still a long way to go there. And yeah, the reason that I usually had everything in this Dragon Shield binder, honestly, is because of these last pages here. One thing I really like about this binder is that I got sideways pages for all the sites. So this is the only side pages that I could find that were actually really good quality. I really appreciate the quality of these pages. And I thought it was really cool to display the sites in sorcery, since they are horizontal, to get horizontal pages to go along with it. The downside to that is obviously there's only 8 instead of 9, so it does take more pages to fill up a full set. But also past that, foils, I would love an option of a binder that was clear, double-sided. I haven't been able to find a double-sided, clear 4 foils with vertical and horizontal pages, and in a perfect world, no D-ring. So ringless is pretty needed for foils, because I just feel like I'm gonna ding my foils up on these rings. I don't think it's that deep at the end of the day. I'm not super anal about it, but I don't know. I think people just keep saying online, oh, you gotta get a ringless binder, you gotta get a ringless binder. And I think I do agree. At the end of the day, some of these are expensive cards, these are nice cards, and I think past that, having it in the official binder is also just super cool. So basically I'm gonna be replacing all of these non-foil cards as I build my foil collection with the foil version of the cards. So we'll go through, I'll just be replacing cards until I basically have a full foil binder, which I think is really cool. I do think I'm going to go art side up on this. So I was debating back and forth for a long time whether I was going to go, description side, card side, or, the cool thing about sorcery foils is that the back has the full art, you know, it's non-foil, but it's still crazy cool to see, as you can see without the glare, hopefully, the full art version of the card. And, you know, I love the artwork. It's why I love the game. And so I think I am going to go art side up for my beta set. And the plan is to finish my beta set, which, you know, I'm closer on, and then to start working on my alpha set. I have a longer way to go on the alpha set, but I do also have an alpha binder with a full alpha non-foil set. And so I want to do the same thing where as I'm replacing, you know, these beta cards, I can also go in my alpha binder and replace the alpha cards. I think I'm going to do beta art side up, and then in my alpha binder, I'm going to do card side up with the text, just because, I don't know, the alpha cards, like, as dumb as it is to say, I feel like are a little more of a flex, like, to have some of these, like, they're more expensive and a little more rare. So I kind of just want the cards to be in the binder, but the beta set, I'm like, okay, I can really have the art front and center. And I will note here that all these foils are the second or third wave, so the summer, you know, quote unquote wave of the foils. It's important to note that because the first wave had less saturation on the cards, and so the colors look pretty washed out. They're not as vibrant, but as you can see, you know, a card like Blizzard, which is super white, you know, in person and even right here, you know, the foiling, obviously the foiling is incredible on these cards, but you can really tell the saturation is just bumped up super heavy on all these cards, and they look even more beautiful. So I do prefer this wave. So I do keep my waves separate in my collection in general, as well as my non-foils I even keep separate. So this right now is a full summer wave of the cards because the saturation is also, you know, equally as vibrant on the non-foils as it is the foils. There's a pretty astounding difference actually when you look at it. So without further ado, I'm just going to begin. So, you know, I've basically got my non-foil set over here. I've got my foil set over here. And so what I'm going to do is, how do I position these? Let's position this right here, and let's position this right here. And then we're just going to go. So basically the first card, Alvaline Dryads, I own this original painting, so, you know, it's fitting to start with this card. So the non-foil goes away. The foil comes out of the foil binder, art side up, and we put it in here. So yeah, I think it actually is going to look super cool because, again, like, look here, like, hopefully there's not a lot of glare here, but as you can see, as I start to fill out this binder with foils, the pages will become increasingly more and more full art sided. So again, it's stupid, you know, it's kind of stupid, but I think it's kind of cool. So I was like, why not make a video? So here we are, making a video. So yeah. So as I do this, you know, obviously this is a little mindless and this is going to take a while and may wind up being a longer video than anybody could ever hope for or want out of an Agent Paco video. But, you know, I wanted to at least talk about Sorcery. People who are watching this, you know, maybe it's your first time seeing these cards, in which case, you know, welcome. This is a dope game. But if it's not your first time and you are familiar with Sorcery as a concept, I think the one thing I want to note here is that I'm just a huge fan of the game. I said in my last video when I bought my first original painting, obviously go watch that if you haven't been able to tune in to that first video and see, you know, the painting that I did get. But in that first video, I did note this is my favorite TCG. I'm not a huge Magic player. I'm not a huge, you know, Pokemon or like any other thing really person. So Sorcery really grabbed my attention because of the art. People like Mike from Collector Art House who really focus on spotlighting the art and the artists. I feel like I've learned a ton about just the artistic kind of process of creating art for a game. One thing that I think is really cool is how you can tell some of this art is designed and cropped in a way for a card to make sense. I mean, I think Call to War, right? So this is Vincent Pompetti. Yeah, Vincent Pompetti. And I think it's really cool how you can tell that he painted this painting, and this is pretty much for, I mean, really for every card in the game, with space on the bottom and the top for the text to be present. So, you know, when you look at the full version, you're like, oh yeah, it's a cool painting, like, you know, very centered. But then you turn it around and it's like, oh, well, it fits perfectly in the crop of the text box for the name at the top and the description in the bottom, and now it looks perfect for a card. You know, I think there's a world where he could have painted this painting originally and not had really anything at the bottom and this be take up most of the frame, you know what I mean? But then you have to kind of tweak your design. He probably submitted his painting to Eric, you know, and maybe got feedback, or maybe just already knew working on a card game that you have to leave space. A lot of these artists are from Magic the Gathering, and I can't pretend to know too much about that, but I will say, you know, obviously masters of their craft, but it is just really cool to even see how these cards get cropped and turned into cards. I think another really cool thing to note about these cards is there's a lot of hidden details that you can only see in the foils, because a card like Conqueror Worm has a text box that covers up the bottom, obviously, but then you flip it around and you're like, oh, okay, there's these like, are these people? I guess it's rocks, but it almost looks like people like looking at the worm. I'm not really sure what that is, but a lot of these cards have hidden kind of details that you can only really find in the foil version. And I honestly think that is so cool, just because it's like, okay, you know, if you know, if you see the full art, then you kind of get maybe an extra hint into, you know, the message they're trying to convey. I think my favorite personally version of this, obviously this binder is for the beta set. I have a separate binder for the next Arthurian Legends set. But my favorite example of a hidden little fun thing in the card that you can't see until you get the foil is Mesmerism. It's one of my favorite cards. The artwork is incredible. Drew Tucker illustration, beautiful. And I think the reason I love that card so much, even though it may not be, you know, the strongest card in the world, like in a competitive sense, is because, you know, when you look at, you know, the card with the text, it's just like a guy. And then you flip it around and you're like, oh, the guy's holding a knife. You can't see the knife until you have the foil and you flip it over. At first, it just looks like a little wizard, you know, a Merlin looking kind of wizard that is like being mesmerized, if you will. And then you flip the card over and you're like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. That's the point, right? So again, the Mesmerism card, it fits thematically because I believe the card is take control, you know, of a target minion or whatever. So you basically just get to gain control. So you're like, you know, you've basically charmed the card or the creature or the minion or whatever that you're taking control over. So it makes sense why he's like holding a knife, because he's like, oh, he's charming you because he's going to kill you or like whatever. So thematically, that's just a super cool detail. So again, I feel like that's really why I love their reasoning for making foil have a full art back. You know, obviously a playing card, usually, I don't know, I can't think of another game, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it may be the only game that does that. The first game to really do that fully as a concept, to make the art front and center. You know, I mean, there's a million card games out there, so I guess I could be totally wrong, but I just find that to be really interesting. I feel like at first, you know, to be completely honest, I don't think I really got it at first. I think at first I saw the foils and I was like almost bummed in a way, because, you know, I do play the game and I was kind of like, well, dang, like, in order to play this game, how do you even play? You pull a foil, let's say you're drafting out of a box and you pull a foil, and then it's like, oh, how do I even play with this card? You're going to put it in your deck and you're going to be able to see what the card is, like in the deck. So it makes sleeving cards an absolute, you know, necessity. I don't think that's such a bad thing anymore. I think in the beginning, you know, pretty novice to like card games, but now I feel like I've realized, okay, everybody sleeves their cards. Like, that's just like a normal thing. Even like when you go to a pre-release or a draft or like whatever. I've actually gone to a couple Flesh and Blood pre-releases kind of randomly. And usually, even though you're at a pre-release and you don't really know the cards, you're building a deck through sealed or draft or whatever, a lot of people still, you know, sleeve their decks. And that's just like kind of an expected thing. So, doesn't really bother me, especially now that I've really grown to appreciate the art, and that's become like the focal point for my enjoyment of the game. I don't really care. So, you know, we're just kind of going here. Obviously, like, rest in peace, just to spotlight this art. As I kind of come across some of my favorite arts, I just want to spotlight Rest in Peace as one of my favorite arts. It's a painting I would love to own. It's definitely already sold to somebody probably much cooler and more valuable than I am. But yeah, really cool painting. I think with my experience with this game, I kind of have had a unique experience because I did not find this game through the Kickstarter in 2023 question mark 2022. When did this Kickstarter happen? 2022. I didn't find the Kickstarter. I didn't find the game before the Kickstarter, like some people. I didn't pledge anything. I kind of found it, honestly, at the worst possible time. I hate to say it, but I really found this game when boxes were $250, like beta boxes. The first time they were out of print, I found, I think I told this story before, but Mike at Collector Art House, he was the first website that I found about this game. I didn't even find the official website. So I was looking at the art and I was like, what in the world is this? And so I told a friend about it. We were looking online on TCG Player. We looked on some YouTubers like that were covering the game, like Cardboard Guide and like Nerd and Proud of It, and like some of those guys who I love watching all their content. And I couldn't find a freaking box. I was like, oh my God, everybody's pulling, like they're doing alpha breaks for, a ton of money. And I'm like, I mean, is this card game like out of print? Like, is it impossible to get anymore? And man, biggest regret is not finding this game while it had a Kickstarter. I mean, my God, I feel like anybody could say that, now that the alpha boxes did kind of balloon to what they are. But yeah, I wound up buying 2 boxes for $250 each. So, I kind of am the sucker on that one, I guess, if you will. So I wound up buying, spending like $500 on boxes from TCG Player, regrettably. But ever since then, I don't even think I pulled anything. That's the crazy part. Like, I opened those 2 boxes with my friend at my house a little over a year ago now, and I didn't pull anything. Like, I don't really think, like, sometimes you hear stories about people being like, yeah, I pulled a Philosopher's Stone foil and looked, and obviously the card is super cool and it's also like $1,000 for the foil and like blah blah blah, and so then I was hooked. I pulled the best card you could possibly pull. I did not have that experience. What's the coolest part I pulled out of those first boxes? I mean, I think if I pulled a unique foil, it was like not a good one, like the Crown Prince that I already went through, or like something like that. I don't know. Maybe if I come across, as I'm filling out this binder, I can remember what my first big pull was. But yeah, I honestly have terrible luck with my boxes. That did carry into Arthurian Legends. Don't even get me started. I think I went pretty deep into Arthurian Legends boxes. I want to say at this point I've opened maybe 30 at this point, and I genuinely haven't pulled anything, like anything good, to the point where, I think that's my problems with Arthurian Legends could be a whole different video, so I may save that. But at least speaking from beta, I think beta for me, I don't really care if I don't really pull anything crazy, just because beta has so many cards. You're seeing so many different cards, so many new cards every time you open a box, that you don't really care. The art is so cool. The cards are so interesting. I'm getting enough new foils in every box to keep me engaged. As you can see, I've opened up, quite a few boxes of beta. I haven't really bought a ton of singles, to be honest. So far, my collection has mostly been what I've opened, a couple trades that I've done, but nothing really, like, I haven't bought like anybody's like collection of like just beta. I just buy some beta foils that I see that are super cheap, like here and there. But there's enough new cards in a box for me to open it and be, I genuinely think this was the card I pulled, Immolation. I want to say this was the unique that I pulled in my first 2 boxes, was it Immolation. And funny enough, it wasn't even this, because this is a summer version, and the first 2 boxes I bought were Wave 1. So I genuinely pulled a desaturated Immolation, which if you know anything about the card market for this game, Immolation, is not worth anything. It's not a very good card. So yeah, that was the best card I pulled. So, you hate to say it. But again, I say all that to say, I was pulling so many new cards and seeing so many cards for the first time. That's what really hooked me in the very beginning. That's what really like got me like so excited, was like, holy, like, what is this? Like, genuinely, like, who are these artists that are like making these cards? Like, oh my gosh. I've never seen anything like this before in my life, you know? So, a year later, fast forward to right now, you know, we're in almost June of 2025. We've had one set come out since then. Two more sets, the Dragon Lord and the Gothic set, have been announced and are officially on the way in production / coming out relatively soon. And my hype is still pretty high, to be honest. Like, I really want to film this video today. The whole reason I decided to go back to beta and kind of look at these cards and do this video in the first place is really just because I want to spotlight a really cool freaking debut set for a game that is great, you know? I feel like going into kind of like Arthurian Legends, which is the second set, you know, I had pretty major like expectations. I think they actually knocked it out of the park with this set. I really think that there's something in here for everybody. There's a ton of cards, and you know, I also realize, okay, making this took years. Like, this is an endeavor of freaking a labor of love, if you will, you know? Like, I believe Eric was commissioning artwork for this since 2018, I want to say. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I believe. The first kind of art was started to be commissioned. The idea was really floating around, and then he kind of locked in during the COVID era, and really, obviously then in the past couple years, it's actually come to fruition in the game, and everything has started to flourish. So, you know, this has been a long time coming, and so with a second set, you have to think in your mind, like, how are they going to do it? Like, is it going to be as good? Can it reach the highs? Is it going to be as many cards? And so I think it was announced at Gen Con last year. They had a box, I believe, of the set. And I want to say that's the first time people started talking and murmuring like, oh, okay, this is like a smaller set. It's like 250, at least 220, 25, whatever it says on the box. Beautiful box, by the way. And people started to wonder, okay, one set a year, half the amount of cards is the beta set. Is this going to work? You know, this is more of a smaller set. It's a themed set, super, super, like, locked-in theme, you know what I mean? With Arthurian lore kind of being the whole reason the set is created, obviously. And when I heard that, honestly, I don't really think I thought too much of it. I think I loved it. I'm a huge Arthurian Legends guy. It's actually funny. My friend who I play this game with in my city, he's a huge Gothic kind of era guy and like loves that art style, that vibe, those type of characters. And I really love, you know, I love like England and King Arthur and the lore of like, you know, the Green Knight and like all these cards. And so when they announced that, I was like, oh my God, like this is literally perfect. And then they announced Gothic, and my friend was like, well, man, we're both getting sets. Like, you get the Arthurian set and I get the Gothic set. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be incredible. So like I said, I pre-ordered a ton of Arthurian Legends boxes. I was super excited. I was ready to dive in. I was on the high of beta. And it was a lot of fun. Like, Arthurian Legends, great set. Honestly, the coolest looking box in the history of TCGs. I genuinely mean that. I have never seen a box look so beautiful for a card game. Opening the box, not a very beautiful experience. You know, after you open 2 or 3, I believe Hayne did the math. And I watched this video, and it was like, if you open more than 3, you're probably not going to have a good time. And, you know, I do have to agree. You know, I've opened a lot of boxes of that, and unfortunately I did have a similar experience where didn't really, you know, find the cards I was looking for. I actually pulled I pulled better cards from Arthurian Legends than I did from beta, honestly, from the boxes. But unfortunately, I lost, I mean, just a ton of money, I feel like. I don't know. Like, you know, it was a great time. I'm trying to build a set of that set as well. So do you really lose anything? I mean, you're buying boxes for a card game. You play the game. You collect the cards. You're not really losing. So I hate to say that, but from a purely standpoint of, like, should I have bought those boxes in that quantity? Maybe not. Maybe the hype kind of got to me a little bit. And I feel like a similar sentiment of people online who collect this game and play this game, you know, it's kind of driven some people away. Not me. I mean, I'm here right now really kind of starting my YouTube career instead of ending it. So I'm not really trying to be that guy. But yeah, you know, I feel like there's definitely left a little bit to be desired on the table. So this set, beta, that I'm going through right now, again, that says nothing about the artwork in Arthurian Legends. I think the Arthurian Legends artwork is equally as beautiful. I like some of those designs even more. I mean, like I said, Mesmerism is one of my favorite artworks, one of my favorite cards, and that's in the Arthurian set. So has nothing to do with the art. But with the beta set, it's a little bit more fun for me to collect again because you open the box and the experience is just more fun. You feel like you're discovering new cards every single time you open the box. You're getting new cards to add to your collection every time you open the box, which again is what is appealing to me as somebody who is, trying to have a collection. And yeah, the theming is a little more like broad and you can kind of cover a ton of different topics, which is also cool. I do love very like locked in, honed in design, and I think that works super well. I just think maybe in a beta set, which is more of a core set, it's more of like an all-encompassing, there's something here for every playstyle and archetypes and different kind of like tribal kind of units and stuff, nothing crazy. But I think in a set like this, the art maybe is a little more cohesive. I feel like if there's one art thing I would say about beta that is maybe a little more appealing than anything else, you can feel that, okay, all these artists have different styles. They all have very unique styles. You can look at this, and if you played this game and recognize the old Salt Anchorman, this is Vincent Pompetti. And you can look at the card and, me being into the art and like watching a lot of videos about the art and like being involved in that side of this world, you can look at Pirate Ship and be like, oh, the guy who did Pirate Ship did Old Salt Anchorman. Like, it makes sense. You look at both of these cards and you're like, oh, that's that same guy. Like, the style is like very similar. And so I think when you piece that together, you do that times, how many artists are in this set? Like over 20 times 20 more, 22 something, I don't know, I'm kind of shooting for that. But when you look at all these arts, they kind of go together a little more because it's like, okay, Brian Smith did Porcupine Pufferfish, but for whatever reason it looks different yet similar to all these other cards. And maybe I'm just like talking out of my ass a little bit, but like this page right here looks sick just together, And so there are different artists on this page, but they all are kind of like cohesive in like a weird way because the different styles almost make it look more cohesive. I don't know, maybe that's a weird argument, but I just believe, it works with the theme of a beta set. You have a beta set where you're covering a lot of ground in a way, so therefore the art covers a lot of different ground. I think overall that's what really draws me to this set and makes beta like, so far the best set and really the best set of a card game, just because like you look at this and it's just like, how did they do that? Like, how did you get all these artists that are from all over the world? I mean, Vasily is in Russia, right? Like, some of these people are in Europe. Severin Pinot, is in France, I believe. And like, you've got all these artists all around the world. You've got people in America, whatever. Yet they're all making art for the same game, and that art comes together and looks cohesive enough for it to work, right? I think, you got to give Eric his flowers in that regard, where it's like he's the one that does the art direction for this game. He's picking the artists. He's telling the artists how to draw to fit the frame, like we talked about earlier. So again, you gotta give him his flowers in that regard. But I also think, okay, you have a cohesive set like Arthurian Legends, which again is a great theme. I'm obsessed with the theme. I am the target demographic for that set. I'm the guy. I'm Mr. Arthurian Legend, and those cards are also cohesive, but it just like, I don't know, it hits a little different. Like some of the cards in that set were maybe a little bit more of a miss for me, not as very relevant to the game from a player perspective, but also from an art perspective. I just feel like beta really like had a little more time in the oven to cook, and that's like a little apparent to me. And it looks like Gothic, I don't even know. I'm going to be very interested to see, and this video could age like wine or age like milk, right? Depending on how the Gothic set goes, because in my opinion, my hype is up on Gothic. I'm hugely interested in just the next big set because they have announced it will be a bigger set. That is confirmed. I can speculate a bigger set means over 400 cards, like the beta set. That is, what I would hope. Even if it's a little less, I mean, I don't think it matters. I think more than 250 is a bigger set, right? At least 300, more than Arthurian Legends. And coming up with the name Gothic, you have to think, okay, you had a set called Beta, Alpha, Beta. In your mind, whether they decide to do like a revised or like an unlimited or like whatever, like another version of this down the line that stays in rotation forever, I don't really know in that regard. But when it comes to Gothic as a theming, that's a very interesting title. When they first announced the Gothic title, I was almost like, oh, that's a clue. Like Gothic, it's going to be a Gothic set. I believe Eric in Discord even said like, oh, Sinister, like months before the Gothic name got announced. He like dropped a clue and was like, oh, the Sinister set, or like Sinister Six, not Sinister Six, but like he said something in Discord that was like Sinister. And he doesn't talk in Discord a lot, so it obviously seemed like a clue, right? When he came into Discord for the first time in literally a year to just drop that, you're kind of like, oh, okay, so the next set's going to have that type of creepy atmosphere, vibe, whatever. And then, okay, then the name comes out and it's Gothic, and that's the name. The name is Gothic. I think that name has grown on me. I think at first I was kind of like, oh, it just is like Sorcery Gothic. Like, I don't really get it. But I think now the name's grown on me a little bit because I'm like, okay, I appreciate the simplicity. I appreciate that it's like no false advertising, I mean, unless we get the set and it's like, I don't even know what's the opposite of Gothic. Like, it's a bunch of like pink, like anime. I don't know, like if that's is anime the opposite of Gothic? But if that's what we get, then maybe I'll be a little confused. But I like the idea of Gothic because immediately that evokes like, again, the old school simplistic nature of a card game like Sorcery and the reason that Sorcery exists, the feeling that really evokes, and also that instantly frames all these cards into a theme. Instantly you think Gothic and you're like, okay, Ian Miller is going to be in this set. Oh, okay, that dude does crazy Gothic stuff. Oh, Peregrine Apparition from Adam Burke, right? This looks pretty Gothic, this is sick. And I think, the one cool thing about Beta was that it was kind of all over the place yet cohesive, and I'm excited because I think Gothic could be cohesive yet cohesive, you know what I mean? Like, it's a little more dialed in, and I'm sure it'll be all over the place. Like, I'm not saying every card has to be a demon, right? I mean, that would be, for 400, again, if the set is 400 cards, I wouldn't want every card to be a demon. I would want it to be range of topics and whatever. I'm hoping, we've gotten a couple spoilers so far. I'm not really going to go into that in too much detail, but from the vibe that I have gotten, without spoiling anything myself, I'm almost seeing like an Angels and Demons, Dante's Inferno. At least that's what I'm really hoping it is, like more of like a Dante's Inferno kind of vibe, where there's angels and there's demons and the fight of good versus evil, light versus darkness, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm starting to sound like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, but like, that's the vibe that I hope we go for. So if that is the vibe and that is what we get in the Gothic set, then I think at the end of the day, it's going to be an absolute banger. Like, I don't see a world where it does horribly, I think, at least from a collecting standpoint. From a gameplay perspective, I can't really talk too much because I'm not incredibly good at the game. I enjoy playing the game. I think it is unfortunate, and my main gripes with this game have nothing to do, like I said, with the art, with the set design, with the theming, with the way that the cards are, the foiling, like whatever. I think for me, some of my main gripes come from playing the game. I think the game takes a long time to play. I think that's totally fine, but I think with that comes its own set of challenges. I think the company doesn't really do an incredible job about promoting the game and marketing the game. I think that's probably like the biggest gripe I would say. And it's a shame because I think at the end of the day, the marketing obviously services the game, but the marketing services the art. Like, I think it's doing the art, I'm not going to say a disservice. That seems a little dramatic. I'm not trying to be like that. But, like, I don't know. It's almost like, man, more people need to see this. More people need to see these cards. More people need to see this YouTube video. I mean, quite candidly, every sorcery YouTube video that I have seen, at least, it is not raking in the freaking like views. Nobody's quitting their job to become a sorcery YouTuber, right? Like, nobody, the professor of YouTube. I mean, I literally I love watching Lord of Itza. Shout out to him. Shout out to his YouTube channel. You know, he's, in my opinion, the biggest sorcery content creator we really have, in terms of like just overall like professor vibes, like topics, and a wide range of like community related engagement and topics and everything. Like, in a way, kind of the face of the YouTube scene. And I think with that, a lot of his videos are, I mean, you know, 300 to 500 views, nothing wrong with that. I think that's pretty freaking good for this card game, but I think it is indicative of, okay, when is a sorcery like video gonna blow? When are people gonna realize, oh, this game is something? Like, this is actually like, this game has a little juice, you know? I mean, I'm not gonna say every Magic video gets 1 million views, but I mean, people like the professor, I mean, this is their job. Like, they cover Magic the Gathering, they cover card games, and again, Magic has been going on for 30-something years. I'm not gonna like harp on that, but I just think at the end of the day, the partnerships maybe that the company has chosen to promote this game, to market this game, especially on YouTube, have not netted, like, what are we really netting, you know, past the Kickstarter? How are we driving engagement to this game? You know, how are we selling this game? How are we getting stores to want this game? You know, they did just announce organized play. I think that's awesome. I think the setup that they have for organized play is interesting. I think the Cornerstone, the Crossroads, and the Avatar events, go read about those if you haven't already, but I do think that that's a cool way to get different levels of people from all over the world engaged in the same way, fighting for some cool prizes related to the art even. I think that's all great, you know, nothing wrong there. I think the biggest thing for me comes into like, okay, we've got that. That's a piece. But how do we get people to go? You know, like, we set the events. That's step one. They have completed successfully step one, right? We have the events. Step two, in my opinion, is, okay, we have the events. Now, what do we do? How do we get 1,000 people to the Avatar of the Realm tournament in 2026? We'll have 3 sets under our belt by that point. We'll have Gothic. We'll have the mini Dragon Lord set, which I haven't really touched on, but that's going to be awesome just from a coolness factor, you know what I mean? So again, they're killing it in the coolness factor. How do we get 1,000 people at that tournament? I know that seems unrealistic, but other card games are doing it, you know? Flesh and Blood is a card game from New Zealand where Eric's Curiosa is, and they're doing it, you know? They're doing the damn thing. So it's like, okay, they're having events. Flesh and Blood had an event like in Memphis, Tennessee that had like hundreds of people out there, or like even like Jackson, Tennessee. That's a better example. There was a regional qualifying event for Flesh and Blood in Jackson, Tennessee. Y'all probably have not heard of Jackson, Tennessee. That is not a big town in Tennessee, but for whatever reason, I mean, they're kind of killing it, you know what I mean? Like, they're able to get people to these events on a local, regional, national, and global level. I think that is the big thing that we're looking for now that we're in this era of, okay, card games are a pretty big deal right now. There's a lot of interest, you know, obviously Magic is booming, Pokemon is booming, all these card games are booming, Flesh and Blood is booming. You know, it is what it is, but sorcery, like, how do we get some of that juice? How do we steal some of that juice, you know? And I think, you know, community engagement and marketing is the piece that is missing. So I say that long-winded, stupid thing to say, I'm here to try. That's why I'm making a video. And again, nobody's going to watch this, but even if you do, Yeah, this is me kind of doing my part, just talking about my feelings, talking about the game, showing off the art. We're in kind of the Alchemy 9 section of the video here. So as you can see, I do have all the avatars in foil. So pretty cool looking page, as well as this. This will be a much cooler looking page once I have all 9. We got 2 and then all of these, but yeah, I'm excited to continue filling that. Oh man, we're getting into the sights, and honestly, the sights I'm so pumped about because, like, dude, the sights are so sick in this game. Like, I love the idea of horizontal cards that contribute to mana in a whole different deck. I think that concept, they knocked it out of the park. I think having these cards be horizontal is just different. It's so different and so unique from other games, and I respect the hell out of it. It's a really cool idea. So yeah, that's my long-winded, part of the video where I rant about sorcery. I'm going to be done with that now, and kind of go back to this. So as you can see, this has been a long-ass video, but I appreciate anybody, a single person. I have not been flipping these over like an idiot. A single person who has been watching this. I mean, congratulations, my God. Like, we are here in the thick of it right now. I kind of didn't really have a script for this video. I just wanted to, like, talk, vent, rant, etc. just about life, about sorcery, about my feelings. And wait, how does this go? I guess like this. And here we are, we're doing it. So definitely much appreciated. I think the future is so bright for sorcery. I will be playing this game if nobody plays this game, because I own the cards and I will continue to buy the cards. So I hope that me talking about this game, you don't get the vibe like, oh, this dude is gonna like stop playing or whatever. Because there are some other people, who have left this game, unfortunately, because of some of these things that I've been talking about. And I think that's a freaking shame. But even past that, we need people in every aspect to be participating in these games. I think that's a big piece of a very active card game community. Where the heck is Edge of the World? Oh, right here. Of an active card game community, you need people to make videos and be engaging with the game, the literal game. Some people don't want to hear that. Actually, I think most reasonable people would agree with me. But you need people who interact with the game. You need people who interact with this game building binders like me of all the cool looking cards. And that's how they play this game, is that they collect the cards, they drop a bag when a release happens, and they're ready to grind out a collection. You're looking at it right now. This is proof, right? You need people, honestly, who come to this game, maybe even they dump a bunch of money just looking for a little move for a week, get their movement, and then bounce. I don't even really care about that. Like, you kind of need those people to juice the market for everybody else. So honestly, this is an equation that requires all different types of interaction within the community. And I think if anybody cares about this game, wants to see this game succeed, plays this game, it's not my, I think another gripe maybe would be Eric's Curioso wants people to kind of promote their game themselves, and kind of do, if you want to see sorcery succeed, then we all have to like pitch in or whatever. And I'm like, okay, to an extent, I would agree with that. I think it gets to a point, right, where it's like, all right, I do not work for this company. I have no incentive to do this whatsoever, except for the pure love of the game, baby. You know what I mean? Like, I'm genuinely in this for the love of the game. But I think there is a level of like, okay, if you genuinely don't want this game to die, then like you have to buy the product. Like, because if the product doesn't get bought, then like these cards, like, nothing gets made anymore. Not to say these cards won't have value. I think even if this game stops being sold by distribution, theoretically goes to zero, quote unquote, from a even financial sense, I think the game will never go to zero. I think the game is too cool looking and the art is too good and too valuable for this game not to at least still be sought after on even just like eBay, you know what I mean? Even games from the 90s that nobody cares or plays anymore are still relatively expensive just because there is a group of community that's like, this is my favorite game of all time. I am never going to give this up. I think Sorcery honestly has a bigger devoted fan base than a lot of those other games. So I can't see this game ever dying, but I want this game to continue living. I think that's the difference, right? Like, there's a difference between this game dying and, oh, they're making a set and it comes out soon. You know, I want the Gothic set to go crazy. I want 1,000 people to show up to the Avatar of the Realm event next year. Do I think that's going to happen as it stands right now? Probably not. Could we get 500? Maybe. I'm really going to try. But set 4, if 500 people show up to the Avatar of the Realm event, honestly, I'm like, okay, set 4, let's get cracking, you know? I think Eric said he had 7 in the pipeline, 7 sets kind of cooked up in his mind, right? If we can get 7 sets out of this game, that's a win. That's awesome. We just got to get there, right? We got to get to 7. Smokestacks, by the way, love this card, love this artwork. Super, hey, talk about Gothic, super cool Gothic, like really like brooding artwork. But you know what I mean. Like, if we can just keep pushing and get more cards, that's what I consider a win. I don't care if these cards are worth $1 million. I don't care if this whole binder is worth $5. To me, that doesn't matter. I'm going to have it no matter what. I'm not going to sell this. This is just a really cool relic of the time that we live in, and I think that's a really cool mentality to be at. But I want 7 binders like this. I think that's my point. I don't want a beta binder, an Arthurian Legends binder, you know, that is kind of half finished right now. I haven't even finished. I'm nowhere near an Arthurian Legends foil set just because I can't bring myself to really care about that right now. But even 3, even if we get this Arthurian Legends in Gothic and even the Dragon Lord, which is more of just a collection piece anyway, that's great and that's awesome, but I would be sad. I would be like, wow, the potential, like, where'd it go? Like, there's so much potential here. I don't want to see it fade. So that's my rant, guys. We're at the very end of the video. I don't want to keep any more people's times. I mean, this has got to be an hour long. I don't even know. Like, this is ridiculous. But this last page, as you can see, I am going to put all the promo dust rewards. So right now I have the foil Sorcerer and the Color Out of Space foil, and then like the little artist card. And I'll put the rest of the dust rewards right here. But this is my binder, guys. I mean, let's flip through it real quick. Again, hour-long video here. But look, I'll quickly go through every page. So as you can see, the art in this game, man, holy, I love it. And I'm so excited to see these pages fully creep up into foil. You know, we're only missing 1 on this page. You know, and it's going to be such a cool sight when this whole binder is just full of the coolest fantasy art of this generation. I'm so excited. Thank you guys seriously for hearing me rant for a little bit. If you want to see more content, please leave a like. Please leave a comment. The engagement really, really helps the algorithm, and I'm just looking to grow. You know, I really want to grow. I really want to make more content if you guys want to hear about it or see it. And let me know what you want to see. You know, I don't really have a ton of ideas for content in this game, but I want to keep going. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Let me know if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on The Realm.